Welcome back. What if I told you a celestial object that shouldn't even exist, one that sliced through our solar system like a silent blade, left behind a message we were never supposed to decode? What if I told you that message wasn't random, wasn't natural, wasn't noise, but a warning, a deliberate, structured, mathematically impossible warning, and that the first scientist to publicly hint at its implications was none other than Dr. Michio Kaku? You know, we humans love thinking we're alone. It's comfortable, it's neat, it makes the night sky feel like a wallpaper instead of a frontier. But every once in a while, something crosses that frontier and taps on the glass, softly, politely, like it's asking, "Do you hear me now?" That was 3I Atlas, the third unbound interstellar object ever recorded, a wandering, ancient, cold thing drifting between stars until it wasn't. Because on April 21st, astronomers detected a faint electromagnetic pattern coming from the object as it approached perihelion. At first, it looked like static, just another cosmic hiss in the endless radio noise. But then, the pattern repeated, not just once, not twice, 13 times, each one separated by an interval that matched no known astrophysical process. No rotation period, no dust outgassing, nothing. And when the signal was cleaned, filtered, and reconstructed through narrow band noise cancellation, it formed a sequence, a binary sequence. One that mirrored a mathematical structure so precise, so tightly engineered, that Michio Kaku himself said, "This is not how nature behaves." Now think about that for a second. One of the world's most respected physicists, someone who has dedicated his life to debunking pseudoscience, looked at a pattern from deep space and said, "Nature doesn't do this." A single sentence, a whisper, but it changed everything. For the public, NASA played it cool. They released statements full of comforting bureaucratic language. Preliminary analysis suggests the emissions are consistent with natural behavior. Sure. If by natural you mean nothing we've ever observed before, nothing Oumuamua did, nothing Borisov did, nothing any comet, asteroid, or rogue object has shown. But here's the thing. Space agencies never panic first. They wait, they measure, they deny, they re-measure. Because panic spreads faster than light. But behind closed doors, astrophysicists knew they were staring at something impossible. And if you know anything about cosmology, the universe is big, but its rules are strict, cold, mathematical, predictable. So when an object violates those rules, you start asking questions you don't want answers to. Questions like, why is an interstellar object transmitting binary sequences? Why do those sequences map onto prime numbers? Why are those primes arranged in a triangular recursive matrix? And why does that matrix resemble early theoretical SETI encoding? Coincidence? Let me put it plainly. There are no coincidences involving prime numbers in astrophysics. Primes are fingerprints, artifacts of intention, a universal language, and hidden inside that fingerprint was something even more disturbing. A repeating pattern that resembled a decaying countdown, not to an event, but to a threshold, a cosmic threshold, something 3I Atlas had encountered long before it ever reached us. The first anomaly wasn't the signal, it was the timing. 3I Atlas began emitting. Just as it crossed a specific heliocentric distance, the same distance Oumuamua displayed anomalous acceleration. The same distance certain near-Earth probes recorded unexplained data spikes. The same distance theoretical physicists have used in models involving interstellar magnetic turbulence and long-range communication drift. It's almost like the space between stars isn't empty, isn't quiet, but structured, layered, like a network, a mesh, and objects passing through it sometimes ping, sometimes echo, sometimes talk. But 3, I didn't talk like a comet. It didn't talk like a fragment. It didn't talk like any known natural body. It talked like a probe. A broken one? Maybe. A drifting one? Possibly. A dying one? Most likely. But a probe all the same. And probes are built, not born. Here's where Michio Kaku stepped in with that trademark half smile that scientists use when they know more than they're allowed to say. He looked at the waveform visualization on a broadcast and gently tapped the screen with his finger. And he said, "This is structured." He didn't blink. He didn't hedge. He didn't hide behind theoretical disclaimers. He just said it. 3 simple words. But to astrophysicists, that was a thunderclap, because structured in this context means not random, not stochastic, not natural, engineered, a signal built on purpose. But why? And by whom? And why now? When the signal was fed through deeper Fourier transforms and entropy filters normally used for pulsar noise analysis, researchers noticed something chilling. The structure was not stable. It was decaying. Almost like a beacon broadcasting its final memory, its last coordinates, its last warning. Think of a black box after a plane crash, damaged, corrupted, but still desperate to tell the story. That's what 3i was doing, trying to tell us something before it slipped forever into the void. And once the entropy was mapped visually, it formed a shape. Not a message, not a picture, not a diagram, but a map, a star map, not of where it came from, but where it had been. In other words, 3i, Atlas, may not be the traveler, it might be the survivor. A drifting witness to something catastrophic, something old, something vast, something that tears through interstellar space and leaves only silence behind. When the map was cross-referenced with Kepler data, one region stood out, a void, not natural, not empty, a scar in the fabric of space where dozens of star systems showed anomalous infrared deficits, as if something had extinguished them. This is when Michio Kaku said the sentence that nobody expected on live television. Whatever happened out there, we should take seriously. So here's the part the public was never supposed to hear. The part buried in redacted PDFs, edited out of interviews, and stripped from NASA's preliminary findings before they were made public. Because once the 3i Atlas binary stream was stabilized using deep entropy reconstruction, the sequence didn't just look structured, it looked intentional. You know how we compress data? How we reduce a message into its smallest possible mathematical form so it survives damage, distance, and noise? Well, whatever sent that transmission was using the same strategy, but not human compression, not machine compression, something older, more elegant, more efficient than anything we understand today. When researchers mapped the binary into a multi-dimensional grid, one shape repeated again and again. A negative entropy spike. Not random, not natural. Not possible unless the signal had been engineered to resist cosmic degradation. Let me put that more plainly. It fought back. The message resisted the chaos of space as if it was designed to last far longer than the object carrying it. Which raises a terrifying possibility 3i Atlas wasn't the messenger, it was the wreckage. A broken courier drifting through the dark long after its creators were gone. Once decoded into entropy layers, the message formed 3 distinct components. 1. A prime cascade, a fingerprint of intelligence, a calling card, a way of saying, this is not noise, don't ignore this. 2. A fractal sequence. This part was harder. It mapped cosmic geometry, the underlying physics of interstellar plasma and magnetic turbulence. But one subsection didn't match anything we know. A spiral, a twist, a distortion. Researchers called it the interruption. 3. The warning layer. This was the part that forced global agencies to classify the data. because when reconstructed visually, the final entropy component wasn't abstract, it was a curve, a smooth, decaying curve, a threshold curve, a universal diagram that matched dozens of theoretical models about one thing: catastrophic energy horizons, points in space-time where stability collapses, where a star, a system, maybe even a civilization faces something it cannot cross. The signal wasn't saying this will happen, it was saying this is what happened to us, a death certificate written across the void. People asked why Kaku looked unusually somber in the days after reviewing the clean waveform, why his tone shifted, why his interviews felt unusually cautious, why his eyes tracked that visualization screen like he'd seen this shape before, because he recognized the threshold curve. It resembles a phenomenon predicted in advanced astrophysics: entropy collapses caused by external energy disturbances. Not supernovae, not gamma bursts, not black holes, but something else. Something that behaves like an expanding shell moving through interstellar space. Something invisible, something quiet, something that leaves no debris, just absence, a void where stars used to be. And 3I. Atlas, it passed through one of those voids. It survived the edge of something unimaginable and carried that last moment of information with it until it reached us. This wasn't a message for us. It was a message it couldn't stop transmitting. A dying echo traveling for perhaps millions of years until it drifted by pure cosmic coincidence into the detection range of an intelligent species. Us? Now imagine you're Michio Kaku. Imagine you're staring at a signal that seems to say, we were erased by something you cannot yet see. What do you say on live television? What do you not say? His final words during that segment, the ones nobody paid attention to, were, we must be cautious, not curious, not excited, not hopeful, cautious. Because if that entropy threshold is real, then something out there is consuming space on a scale we do not and cannot yet comprehend. And 3I Atlas was the first eyewitness. You remember the star map embedded in the signal entropy? Well, astronomers completed the reconstruction. It shows a path, a journey, a flight from one star system to another, each point dimmer than the last. Each one showing infrared deficits, the signature of systems losing heat far faster than physics says they should. It was like watching a candle flame retreat from an approaching wave of darkness. Stops, starts. Course corrections. Like something was desperately trying to escape, and at the end of that path, there was no star, no system, just blackness. A blank point in space that should not be blank. That's when analysts labeled the map region of terminal silence, and 3I Atlas emerged from that direction, meaning whatever was in that darkness, it outlived everything around it, except one object, one survivor, one messenger that died in our solar system. When all layers were combined, the decoded message formed a pattern that could be translated as approach threshold. Instability detected. Do not cross. Which is why the scientific team began referring to the signal informally as the threshold warning. The idea isn't that something is coming toward us. The idea is that we might be moving towards something dangerous without knowing it. We orbit the galaxy. We move through regions of space that change over millions of years. What if one of those regions is lethal? What if 3I Atlas simply left the last breadcrumb from a civilization that crossed that boundary and never came back? Michio Kaku put it this way in private discussions. The universe may not be empty. It may be full of places life should never go. Let that sink in. This isn't about aliens arriving. This is about us drifting towards something we don't yet understand, something the builders of 3I understood too late. Here's the part people always misunderstand. They hear warning and their minds jump straight to aliens, invasions, extraterrestrial threats. But the truth hiding inside the 3I Atlas message is far more unsettling. This wasn't a warning to us. It wasn't a warning about us. It was a warning for anyone passing through a particular region of the galaxy. A cosmic danger sign left behind by travelers who didn't survive the crossing. A sign nailed to a burning forest. A whisper lingering in the vacuum. Don't follow our path. And the moment researchers realized this, the paradigm of the entire investigation shifted. Because we always assumed the universe was benign, harsh, cold, vast, sure but neutral. But what if it's not? What if the universe has hazards? Not because something is hunting you, but because space itself contains invisible boundaries where the laws of physics behave differently. Boundaries that destroy civilizations long before they can understand what happened. This is where the real story begins. Imagine the early days of human exploration. Sailors navigating open seas without knowing where storms formed or where reefs could tear their ships apart. To them, danger felt supernatural, random, unpredictable. But we now know those dangers were structural, built into Earth's environment. Space is the same. We're not wandering a calm vacuum. We're sailing through a turbulent, shifting interstellar ocean. Magnetic eddies, plasma density waves, radiation fronts, gravitational discontinuities, dark matter filaments. And somewhere out there, if the 3I Atlas data is real, there's a region where the ocean simply breaks. Not a storm, not a monster, but something far stranger. A point where entropy behaves in reverse. A region where order collapses into nothingness. Where energy drains, where stars dim, where life cannot maintain structure. We call it impossible. But the map inside the message suggests civilizations before us learned that lesson the hard way. By now, every major research group, from SETI to the Japanese Space Plasma Institute to classified NASA teams, has silently shifted to a single working theory. 3I. Atlas isn't a fragment of a comet. It's a fragment of technology, a shattered piece of an object built by a civilization that encountered a cosmic boundary and lost. Its signal, not a deliberate broadcast, but the last automated echo, the equivalent of an emergency beacon that kept repeating the same decaying message for millennia. And here's the disturbing part. There are signs the system once contained far more data, but entropy has consumed nearly all of it, meaning this tiny, dying binary memory is all that survived whatever killed its makers. During a closed scientific roundtable, when Michio Kaku reviewed the entropy layers and the threshold curve, he leaned back and said something that froze the entire room. If this is real, then the great filter is not behind us, it's ahead of us. Silence. Because the great filter, that infamous, terrifying hypothetical barrier in the evolution of intelligent life, was always assumed to be biological or social or technological. But what if the filter is cosmic? Not war, not AI, not collapse, but a region of the galaxy itself that erases advanced civilizations as soon as they reach a certain level of expansion. Suddenly, every chilling clue in humanity's past seemed to fall into place. Why we've detected no megastructures, why no advanced signals reach us, why the galaxy is silent, why we find voids where civilizations should exist. Maybe they're not hiding. Maybe they reached the threshold and vanished. 3I, Atlas, might be the only surviving witness to that cosmic disappearance. When researchers compiled the full entropy reduction and overlaid the curves, the message stabilized into a simplified form. This is the clean structure. Threshold ahead. Energy loss region. Do not enter. This is not a metaphor. It's not symbolic. It's literal astrophysical danger. Something out there kills stars, kills civilizations, kills physics as we know it. And we, Earth, the solar system, humanity, are slowly orbiting the galaxy and moving toward regions we have never studied. If one of those regions is a threshold, we would never see it coming. We would simply notice stars dimming, magnetic fields weakening, technology failing, energy behaving strangely, cosmic background noise shifting. And then, nothing. Silence. Exactly like the Region 3I Atlas escaped from. People think space agencies hide things because they want control. Wrong. They hide things because uncertainty causes chaos. Imagine telling the world, an interstellar wreckage just warned us about a region of space that kills civilizations, and we don't know what it is or whether we're heading toward it. What do you think happens next? Markets crash. Governments panic. Religions fracture. People riot. So NASA did the only thing they could do. They labeled the signal natural behavior, even though it matches no natural phenomenon known to science. Now you're going to understand why this episode is called We Decoded the 3I Atlas Message and It's a Warning. Because the last reconstructed portion of the signal, the faintest one, barely readable, corrupted beyond repair, contained a final pattern, a pulse, a descending frequency, a final echo. When translated, the closest linguistic approximation is, we did not adapt in time. Not, we were attacked. Not, we were destroyed. Not, beware others. Just, we were too late. A quiet, heartbreaking admission from a civilization long dead, a message drifting for millions of years until the universe, by chance, delivered it to the only species capable of hearing it, us. Now the question is, what do we do with it? Because the next part is where everything comes together. The science, the implications, the philosophical shift, the survival question, the future of humanity. This is where Michio Kaku's analysis becomes more than science. It becomes a choice and a warning. You know, people like to imagine humanity's greatest danger will come with noise, with fire, with fleets of ships blotting out the stars. But warnings, real warnings, rarely arrive loudly. They arrive as whispers, as patterns, as dying echoes from things far older than we can imagine. 3I, Atlas, was one of those echoes. And after decoding everything, after parsing every bit of degraded data, every entropy curve, every impossible prime sequence anomaly, the message wasn't a threat. It was a eulogy. A civilization's final breath carried across the galaxy in the shattered remains of something once magnificent. And here's the part that hits hardest. They didn't die because of war, or folly, or invention, or hubris. They died because they crossed a boundary they didn't understand, a threshold hidden in the deep ocean of the cosmos, a place where physics loses its grip, where energy dissolves, where light itself retreats, where entropy consumes everything it touches, and yet humanity is still moving, orbiting, drifting, sailing slowly through a galaxy that is far less empty than we ever dared to believe. Maybe the silence of the stars is not evidence that we're alone. Maybe it's evidence that others reached the threshold before us and didn't come back. Here is where Michio Kaku, calm, measured, brilliant, gave his final interpretation. Not sensational, not dramatic, just honest. He looked at the reconstructed threshold map and said, this is not a message of fear, it's a message of timing, meaning civilizations don't disappear because the universe is hostile. They disappear because they run out of time, because they don't learn fast enough, don't adapt fast enough, don't recognize the boundary before it swallows them. So the real question, the question 3I Atlas forces us to confront is painfully simple. Will we? Will we learn? Will we observe? Will we slow down, study, prepare? Will we survive long enough to avoid the threshold that erased someone else? Or will we repeat the same tragic cosmic mistake? Here's the truth. Warnings aren't meant to scare you. They're meant to give you a chance. 3I. Atlas didn't reach us by miracle. It reached us because somewhere, long ago, a dying civilization refused to let their final moment disappear. They encoded their end, launched their memory, and trusted the universe to deliver it to whoever needed it most, to us. Now it's our turn to decide whether that message becomes a prophecy or a turning point. Because the stars aren't silent anymore. They spoke once, softly, desperately. And if we're wise, we'll listen. This was the decoded message of 3I, Atlas. This was the warning. And this is your reminder that survival begins with understanding